Hi, everyone. I see people streaming in, so we'll wait a few minutes to get everybody in and be able to hear. You will have a poll that our wonderful moderator, Sydney, is going to be asking you to complete. Please do complete it so I know what grade your students are in. It's very helpful for me when I do these presentations because this way I can really angle the content to your specific needs as much as possible. And there will be a Q&A at the very end. So definitely put your questions in the Q&A section, not in the chat section. So I hope you can all see the poll there. And wonderful. Yes, well, thank you so much for joining us. We will get started very shortly. Just give a few minutes for people to come in. And let's see. In the poll, you'll have a chance to put in the ages and the grades that your kids are in, and that way I really will be able to speak directly to your questions and be able to answer them. So yeah, we'll get started very shortly. Do put your questions into the Q&A. So I will get started because we have a lot of wonderful things to cover and I do want to get to your questions. So if you are thinking about college planning for your kids, you have come to the right place. Welcome. My name is Anjali Maazel. I'm a former Princeton interviewer, TED Talk speaker, and college admissions expert. I'm also the very proud mom of a thriving 23-year-old now in grad school. At Anja Education Consultants, we've helped hundreds of students get into their top perfect match schools, including Yale and Stanford, Johns Hopkins and Vanderbilt, and Swarthmore and UT Austin, to name just a few. As a Princeton interviewer, I learned what colleges are looking for in a student and how applicants can stand out from the crowd. And as a parent, I learned how important it is to teach our kids that college is just one step in designing a life of purpose. It's not an end in itself. So before we move on, for those who have just arrived, I see a lot of people arriving now. Please do fill in the poll so that I know what ages your kids are, what grades they're in, or if you're a student, what grade you're in. And then we will have a Q&A at the end. So please put your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat. So at the end of the session, after I have shared really the fruit of all my years of experience in this field, I am going to give you a gift. And so I'm going to ask Sydney to paste the link in. Now, please wait to sign up because this is going to be a very valuable moment, but I do want you to understand what the benefits are if you do sign up for this. So yes, Sydney, if you could put that in, wonderful, thank you. So now, in terms of my experience as a Princeton interviewer and a parent, what does that experience mean for you? So visualize this. It is October 15th of your teen's senior year in high school. And because they submitted their 10 to 15 high quality applications early, they have their first acceptances rolling in. And they have gotten the scholarship you were hoping for. So now you have the funds, the time, the peace of mind to plan that winter break vacation you've been fantasizing about for years. What you're thinking about is mountain or beach, domestic or international. Of course, in a post-COVID world, or in a, making the best of our world right now, that's what you're thinking about. And in this scenario, what is your child thinking about October 15th of their senior year of high school? Instead of being close to burnout by trying to juggle applications with schoolwork and extracurriculars, and instead of dreading winter break because they will be cramming their applications and submitting subpar essays, your teen is now free to pursue the academic and extracurricular activities that mean the most to them. And additionally, for seniors, first semester grades are really important and often looked at by admissions. So your kids will have the energy to perform well in school instead of trying to do everything at the same time. So timing is key. Now, again, whatever questions you're asking, please type them in the Q&A box. You don't have to put the grades your kids are in because that will be in the poll. And we will be looking at some tips in a moment. Now, timing is key. Earlier is better, and let me explain why. This is tip number 1 for outstanding applications. Focus the timeline of help your child focus the timeline, or if you're a student, focus your timeline on when applications open. Generally, that's August, September, not when they close, which is generally December, January. The reason is that rolling admissions, whether a college states officially that they are rolling admissions or not, can often be an important part of how admission plays out, which means rolling admissions is kind of first come, first serve. As colleges receive those applications, they are allocating spots in their freshman class, they are allocating resources for scholarships. So how do you get ready to submit standout applications? Now, toward the end of this webinar, I will share that blueprint that I have developed over many years in this field, so please stick around. Now, but first, before doing that, I'm going to introduce you to the steps through 3 case studies, the steps of this blueprint through 3 case studies with 1 tip for each case study. So let's start with Tony. Tony's story. So Tony came to me in his sophomore year of high school, and he said, I'm really good in math, and everybody tells me I should become an engineer, so I guess I'll become an engineer. And he kind of looked down while he was saying this and slumped in his chair. I could tell his heart wasn't in it. But then he added, almost apologizing, and I also make art. Now, when I looked at his art portfolio, I saw an amazing talent. And so I paired him with a mentor locally who guided him through his artistic process, and then recommended that he helped him apply to the Rhode Island School of Design summer program. And when he came back from that program at the end of the summer, he said to me, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to go into architecture. And architecture, what's interesting about that is it combines both his strength in math and his artistic ability. He turned down a $100,000 scholarship to Tulane. He's now at Rice University, which was his first choice, doing architecture. Now, you have to also know that going into this process, his GPA was quite high, his SAT scores were quite high. So all of this together played into his story. Now, what his story illustrates leads us to the ability or the method of choosing the perfect match majors for a student. So again, high GPA, high test scores, but by making those right choices in extracurriculars for the summer and through the mentorship that I organized for him, he found out what he wanted to major in. And then we could find his perfect match colleges to apply to. So the benefit for you of this process is guidance in career and major planning, which saved his parents' time and money in college through greater clarity? And how would it have gone if he had majored in engineering instead of architecture? Think about that, given that his heart was not in it. He might have, gone to college and then changed his mind halfway through. So he would have lost time and probably money by doing that. So this tip number 2 is ask your teen not what they want to be when they grow up, but what lights them up and what are the issues or needs in the world that they want to address. Help them find that sweet spot between passion and aptitude, what they love and what they're good at. And the choice of extracurricular and summer programs for next year is really crucial. So this is one of the places where expert guidance can really, really make a difference. Now, before we go on to the next story and the next tip, I just want to look at this poll and see that most of you are either parents of 11th graders or 11th graders, with some 12th graders, some 10th graders, and a small amount of 9th graders. Okay, so the vast majority is in 11th grade. Very good. So now those were the first 2 tips, and the latest being Tony's story about choosing a major through careful extracurricular planning. Now let's look at Ellen's experience. And her story is really about how your teen can tell their story for compelling applications. So Ellen is now a business major at Emory University. She came in with a very different profile than Tony. She came in with high B average and did not have the scores that Tony did. So and she also needed more funding for her college. So we needed to help her maximize her scholarships while coming into the process with the statistics that I just mentioned. So I helped her tell her story by focusing on 2 aspects. First of all, showing how she improved her GPA over the 3 years through hard work and taking initiatives outside of school, while taking the most rigorous classes she could. So that's the first one. And the second one is how she talked about her extracurricular experience in yearbook, which she combined with an internship at a startup incubator in the town where she lived. So by combining these different threads of her experience, her improved GPA, her internship experience at the startup incubator, and then finally her extracurricular experience in yearbook where she was a manager. So as a manager, she got to practice some of those business skills. By putting all of that together, she was able to write compelling essays and about her desire to be a business major. She got admitted to her top school, which was Emory, and she also was offered 12 scholarships ranging from $20,000 to $100,000. So this tip number 3, is the key to see your child's 3-year journey. The key is to see that journey from 9th grade through 11th grade as a story. How do the academic interests of the student fit together? How can those threads be combined to reveal who they are? Now, step 1 in this process is taking an interest and strengths assessment. And I have one that I use with students that's very effective, that helps them to understand more about themselves and then be able to use the terms from that assessment to talk about their own strengths and how those could contribute to a college program. The step 2 is brainstorming, right? So once you've taken that interest and strengths assessment, to start to brainstorm what that experience could look like over time. Now, what we want is a story that really ties in with who the student is. Now, we hear a lot about, be authentic, authentic self, just be yourself. And sometimes we're looking at those college websites and thinking, oh my gosh, if I have to hear this word again, I don't know. I can't listen to this anymore because it ends up sounding like a buzzword or loses its meaning, the word authentic. But actually what I found is that if we work organically from the beginning with the students' interests, help them find these extracurriculars that are really exciting, and then help them pull all of these threads together from different aspects of their lives, in the end, they're writing really compelling essays and applications. And yes, being in line with their authentic self. So there's more to it than just a buzzword. So the benefit here, the benefit for you to practice this is optimized admissions results through being able to tell this compelling story, financial savings through scholarships, and peace of mind of knowing that what you're telling the college really is about who you are, so that when you get there, you can flourish and thrive. So the next is Grace's story, and I worked with her last year. I will let you hear them, Grace and her mom, tell you themselves. But what I want to point out is she mentions a $20,000 scholarship. That was per year. So in fact, it was an $80,000 scholarship over the 4 years of college. And right after them listening to them tell their story, we will talk about how testing, the SAT and ACT, played into Grace's success. So Grace also was awarded $199,000 scholarship to her second choice school. So here are Grace and Maria to tell you about their experience.
Hey, there's no sound on the video right now.
Okay, so it sounds like there was no sound, and I apologize. I don't know how that happened, but what I can tell you about Grace, because this is part of these tips that are so going to be so helpful for you, is that she was her thing was that she's very strong in performing arts. So what happened with Grace is that because we were able to nurture that, so that ties in with how do you develop a student's talent. However, the fourth tip is actually about SAT and ACT, because for Grace, she ended up at the School of Performing Arts, the Cal Arts, which was her first choice school, with an $80,000 scholarship. What got her there, you could say, well, how did the SAT and ACT play into this? Well, in this landscape of COVID and the test optional possibilities for college applications, students sometimes get very confused. First of all, what does test optional mean? Now, you may already know what that means, but I'll be very brief in explaining. Basically, what it means is that for test optional school, which most are, if you send your score in, the schools will look at it. If you do not send the score in, they will evaluate the application on other points. So it's not the same as test blind, where a school basically does not look at tests even if you send them in. So given the landscape that we're in currently, I recommend that students still prepare for either the SAT or the ACT. The question is, which are you going to prepare for? There's absolutely no need to prepare for both, because schools will look at them equally and consider them one as strong as the other. So you should invest your time in acing one of them. I have a really great diagnostic for ACT versus SAT to choose which one is going to be the most compelling. So the question, though, is when is it a good idea to submit an SAT score or an ACT score, and when is it not? So the best thing is to look at the 50th percentile of those tests that from the colleges that you're applying to, and see if you're toward the top or toward the bottom. If you're toward the bottom, it may not help in an application process, and it may be useful to start using the test optional policy. If you're at the top of that 50th percentile for that specific college that you're interested in, then it becomes an asset, right? And then, the using that test for admissions is actually a positive. Now, in Grace's situation, what happened was that we did give her the diagnostic, but in the end, she really felt, and we agreed, that the test results, because they were toward the bottom of the 50th percentile of where she was interested in applying, that it was not going to be to her benefit to apply using her test scores. So she applied test optional, and it worked out great. Now, so the result of that is tip number 4 through that case study is be strategic about your test optional options. That 50th percentile I gave you, it's really only a guide, and it depends really on a couple of other factors. Keep one thing in mind. Historically, test optional or test flexible colleges like NYU or Smith College, they are very familiar in how to handle applicants without standardized tests. Some of the colleges that just became test optional during COVID, they're less familiar. So, if test optional is super important, you might want to look at some of those historically test optional schools or test flexible. Now, there are some colleges that have become test blind. That means that even if you send a test score in, they will not look at it. And that includes University of California system, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, etc. So basically, be strategic about the SAT versus the ACT as well. They are very different tests. They test different abilities, and sometimes students score equally well on them, but generally I have not found that to be the case. So that diagnostic between the SAT and the ACT can be super helpful. The PSAT score can also be used as a marker. It's usually taken twice, once in the sophomore year, once in the junior year. In the junior year, that result counts for the National Merit Scholarship. But you can also use the PSAT as a benchmark to see where you're at if you tend to score higher on the SAT versus the ACT. So make no mistake, though, these tests are not aptitude tests. They are not testing your ability. They are testing how much test prep you have done. Now, some students do test prep on their own. That's great. Some students really require support. Whatever the case is, don't think that if you don't ace this test right off the bat, that is some reflection on your ability for and your college readiness, because it definitely is not. That research has been done on this. It's been shown not to be true. So now at this point, you might be wondering how all the pieces of the applications fit together. All of these tips that I've mentioned, all of these important ways to create outstanding college applications and gain admission to best fit colleges. So how can you ace this college admissions process? You know, how does it all, what is the system? Is there a system? So over the years, I have developed a blueprint. It's now a proven blueprint for what to do and when, and I want to share that with you. I also want to show you how you can access it after that. So please stick around while I show you this step-by-step blueprint. And after that, I will be sharing final practical tips that I think you're going to find very, very useful. So do stick around. Now, as a bonus, I'm also going to offer you a 30-minute free strategy session to explore how I might be able to help going forward, to help your children, you know, ace their admission process, and which package would be best for you. So, Sydney, if you would be kind enough to paste that link in again so people can start signing up. Students, if you are signing up without a parent, please be sure that you come to the meeting with at least one parent. Again, please, students, bring at least one parent to the meeting. And this is a meeting to explore how we might work together in the future. If you just have questions that I have not answered at the Q&A at the end, please just drop me a line, you know, rather than booking a 30-minute strategy session, if it's just to ask me a question or two. But I really do look forward to hearing from you. So now our moderator, Sydney, is, I think, dropping that link into the chat. Let's see. I do not see it because I am not on the chat. Here it is. Okay, very good. I was in the Q&A. All right, excellent. So now the blueprint. So these packages, so I present them as packages because that's the way I have created a method, right? And so I offer them as packages as well. This is both the blueprint of the method and the package for how I work with students. So it serves both purposes. And it's, you know, it's for you and your kids really to have the time and the bandwidth to focus on what matters most, what brings you joy, you know, family, friends, passions, that long anticipated vacation. So if you can have that blueprint, it will save you so much time and hassle. Okay, so what does that blueprint look like for 10th, 11th to 12th grade students? So first of all, there are a few ways that I've created this blueprint. There are two of them. One is a comprehensive approach, and one is an approach that includes test prep. So let's go with the one first that does not include test prep. So because some students like to either prep on their own, or they have their own tutors, or they have their own methods for prepping. So here, the weekly meetings will happen in the 11th grade spring and summer before 12th. At all other times, they will be monthly. So the monthly meetings will start as soon as we start working together. And that is to start to get some of these tasks done. Then I highly recommend the cutting edge strengths and interest assessment, which I mentioned with Tony's story. They are very useful to help students direct them toward majors, careers, and their strengths that they can build on. Then we want to be sure, and whether you're working with me or working on your own, whether you're using this as a blueprint or as my package to work with me, either way, what you want to do is look at the transcript of the last 3 years. Look at where the gaps are. You know, be analytical, look at it as if you were stepping back from it and see, you know, are there any gaps that need to be filled? Look at your 4-year plan and see, have you covered all the requirements? And of course, if you're applying to highly selected schools, have you gone beyond those requirements for graduation? When you are struggling, do not wait. Get yourself the support you need, whether it's tutoring or free help online, whatever it is. And then assess that curriculum, as I said, that 4-year plan and those choices of courses in high school. I help students make those decisions as well if we're working together. And then your choice of extracurriculars, just like we saw with all the case studies that I gave you, are extremely important. What you do with your time between now and when you submit your application, super important. So analyze, are your extracurriculars, how do they fit into your overall story? How are they, and are they helping you understand more about yourself and more about what you might want to do in college? Now, some activities like athletics may not seem to answer those two questions, but they build character. There's a lot going for those activities as well. So I'm not saying that the activities have to be career related. It's much broader than that. So go deep in that analysis. You want to look at the summer. You want to look at also during the school year. And what I call this life skills boot camp, these are things that are not taught at school. So if you're working with me, great, I will guide you through it. If you're not working with me, this is an important part of the blueprint. Make sure you understand how to write a very clear and elegant resume. The style matters, the presentation matters, the content matters. Interview prep. As a former interviewer of Princeton University, I have a process that I guide students through. It's a 3-step process. If you're not working with me, there are many resources out there, free resources to hone your interview skills. Super important, because an interview, although not all colleges offer them, can be the deciding factor in the end, all other things being equal in an application. And then email and phone strategies. This may seem kind of absurd, right? Why does a teenager have to master some of these things that we're going to be learning later on? Well, yeah, you don't have, not necessarily mastering, but starting to get those tools of how to communicate with admissions. There is an self-advocacy part to this, where basically you're trying to get that admissions counselor who's reading your application and to advocate for you. So you want to establish a connection where possible with that admission counselor. And there are positive ways of doing that and less positive ways. So again, that can be a very important component. And then social media, it's not just about cleaning up your digital footprint. It's also about ways of possibly using social media to then connect with professors in areas you might be interested in. And that can be, all of these things, they don't have to be a super stressful thing. They can be extremely enriching, because these are ways to connect with the community, to also connect with the community you're going to be going to eventually, one of those colleges. And of course, it helps build your profile at the same time. And then we're going to get that best fit college list. Now, the college list, in my experience, creating that for a student is an art, because we're not just plugging in a bunch of numbers into a into a database that's then spitting out a list, right? It's got to be this size and it's got to be this location. Those things are important, things like size, location, they can be important for students. I'm not saying they're not, but there's also, what I bring to it anyway is my experience with those colleges and what kind of students are going to be happy where, because ultimately that college list, there should not be anything on that list, no college that you don't want to go to. Every single college on that list should be a college where you would be happy going to, where you're going to thrive, right? So identifying that. Now, when students work with me, I give them a step-by-step process to research schools. I give them about 20 to research that I think would be good fits, and then they boil it down to that 8 to 10. But if you're doing it on your own, be sure that you get high quality information, find out what students are saying about colleges, really think, what kind of environment am I going to thrive in? Because that's the most important thing down the line. And then that SAT versus ACT diagnostic that we talked about with Grace's story, super important. Create a SMART testing plan for yourself. If you've already done it, great. If you haven't done it yet, the earlier you begin to plan for that, the better. And as I said, you can start with that diagnostic, and then based on that, make a plan for yourself. And then the college applications. So now those are going to, begin laying the groundwork in that junior year. That's at least what I do with my students. And then you're going to do quite a lot of it in the summer. And the goal, as I said, is to try to get as much of it done before senior year so that you're not trying to juggle everything at the same time. And there should be, I would say, at least three target as a base of colleges, and then the rest reaches and far reaches. That's what I do for my students, because there's no such thing as a safety school anymore. The only safety schools are community colleges, or even auto admit in Texas, for example, where if you're in the top like 6% or 10% of your graduating class, you get automatically admitted to some of these state schools. Even there, they don't guarantee auto admission to your first choice major. So you have to be very, very strategic with that college list and with those applications. And then the essays. So the essays are there to pull your story together, to tell admissions something that they don't know by looking at all the numbers on your, transcript and test scores. This is extremely important. And as I illustrated with some of those stories, like Ellen's story, how to pull those threads together. It can be a very exciting process. And I highly recommend that. And then also, when I work with students, so I help with all the essays for colleges. So that includes honors essays, and also planning for summer programs. So the summer that you plan between now and your senior year is going to be super important. So sometimes that involves applications. If you work with me, I will help you with those applications, with those essays, choosing those programs to be sure that they really fit in with the entire strategy, so that you can present what you are going to explore in college and what you have to offer in the most exciting and compelling way possible. And then the advanced application strategy. So once you get to your admission time, you'll get rolling admissions throughout the year, and certain more selective colleges will give you the admission either mid-December results, or they'll give it to you around April 1st, March and April. You may be put on a wait list. If your child is put on a wait list, there are strategies to help them get off that wait list. So if you work with me, I stay with you all the way through from now until you enroll in your school of choice. And scholarship negotiation. Do not think that just because they've offered you a package, you have to take it. There is something called negotiation. So again, students who work with me, I help them do that. There's a way of doing it that is going to get those financial aid offices on your side. But if you're not, that's fine. You can still make a case for yourself. And the important thing is to always focus on the positive, what you're going to contribute to the school. So just to give you an overview, that my average scholarship per student since 2014 has been $80,000 average scholarship. And that's merit scholarship, not income-based. And the scholarship range for every single student I've worked with has been from 12,000 all the way through the full rides of about 276,000. So every single student I've worked with has obtained at least a $12,000 scholarship. And so therefore my fees are paid for many times over, especially given that average scholarship of 80,000. Now, for those who are not going to be able to afford working with me, no problem. I want you to have the best information possible. So let me know, send me an email. I will send you free resources that I have that will help you, navigate the process on your own, but with some free help. So, and throughout this process, I use growth mindset and focus on purpose because we want to keep this story, this experience of the application process in the context of the kind of life you want. It's not about just getting in, it's about thriving in college and having college be one step in designing the kind of life that you want for yourself, or that your children want for themselves. So the 11th and 12th grade price is $8,997. As I say, always covered many times over by the scholarships my students get, merit scholarships. If you add that to income-based scholarships, then it's even more than that. And I will be offering a $500 discount. So Sydney, would you paste into the chat again the link? If you sign up for that 30-minute free strategy session to explore how we might work together, you will also, by signing up, get this $500 discount. So that's if you, again, if you sign up. So the other package that I have is more because it includes test prep, 18 hours of test prep. So it includes everything that we've done. And in terms of the blueprint, right? When you're thinking about how to plan over the next year, you're going to then add, 18 hours of test prep is pretty usual. If you look at the different test prep companies, 9 hours of math, 9 hours of English for either SAT or ACT. And then, when you're considering your plan, are you going to want to apply to 10 schools? Are you going to apply to 15? I've had students apply to 6 and it's been fine. And I've had students apply to like 25 and it's been fine. Often the students that are applying to many, many schools, it's either because they've covered their bases in terms of the likely and target schools. They've covered their bases and they just are very keen on having every chance to get into an extremely highly ranked and difficult to get into school. So they add on a bunch of reaches. The other scenario where people are applying to 15, 20, 25 schools is when there are auditions involved. So if it's a performing artist in music, theater, musical theater, etc., voice, sometimes because the auditions are that audition process is so selective, they want to increase their chances. So sometimes they'll do that. But, average is 8 to 10 or a 10 to 12, depending on what you want. So that's how to envision that. And when you add on the test prep and the extra college applications, which involve multiple essays, generally speaking, then we're talking $12,697. But if you sign up for that strategy session, so already you're saving this much by bundling everything. But if you sign up, you can also get that $500 discount. So please avail yourself of that possibility. Now, if I see that there are some 10th graders and even some 9th graders, so I'm just going to mention this quickly, and 9th grade and 10th grade parents, there is a wonderful way to guide students through the planning process for college so that by the time they get to 11th grade, they're in a great position. And I've developed this talent development protocol, just helping students discover, develop, and demonstrate their talent through pairing them with mentors, outside the box summer programs, personal projects, and extracurricular and internship planning. It's very powerful. Some of the other elements are similar to the 11th and 12th, but when we start in 9th or 10th, we have more time, right, to do that. And you get a personalized high school timeline, so you get to plan in advance. So that one is going to be 1997. Whether you're in 9th grade or 10th grade, or if you have middle school students, I sometimes work with middle school students as well. And that one will give you a $200 discount if you sign up today for the 30-minute one-on-one free strategy session. So that is the basic blueprint. Basically, I want to give you some final tips. Okay, so don't do this. Now, some of you parents will know who this is. This is Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind. And she used to say famously, "I'll think about that tomorrow." Don't think about that tomorrow. Start planning now. And don't buy into these myths. So I hope that you all can see that my children need to get into a 10 to 100 ranked school to be successful in life. If they don't get into X school, their life will be ruined. If they don't become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, they will be poor. These are all false. And research shows that the best predictors of success are not the school rank, but being closely mentored by professors in college, engaging with the college community in an active way by doing things like, student organizations and causes that students really are very keen on, and then choosing work that's in line with the 21st century job skills, things that robots are not likely to be able to replace. They're often called the soft skills, and things like creativity, critical thinking, communication skills. A lot of these we work on together, if you do choose to work with me. So these are some things to do. Prioritize the fit of the college over the rank. Now, having said that, I have students, I've worked with students who get into very highly ranked colleges, Yale and Stanford, Vanderbilt, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not against highly ranked colleges at all. But the most important thing, and sometimes those are exactly right fit, but the most important thing is the fit. And if you prioritize fit over rank, it redefines the success in this college admissions process. It can transform this process from a super stressful process into a journey of self-discovery. And that's really what I wish for you, for all of you. That is so very important. I've already covered the idea of purpose and growth mindset, as well as timeline. We've already covered that. And then, some kids don't know what they want, and support the kids in being okay with not knowing, but help them start to take those steps to find out now. Right? The Renaissance kids, those who have many different interests, and you're wondering, how are those all going to fit together in a career, in a major? Celebrate that. There are more and more interdisciplinary majors. There are so many options for Renaissance kids who tend to be very creative thinkers. So that's something to capitalize on instead of get worried about. And then again, we talked about aligning this whole process with who you are, what you really want, and starting to discover that, right? And then also these things. So we want to be sure that colleges know how much a student is interested in them, because colleges are managing their yield, their acceptance numbers, and their who out of the people they admit, how many people are actually going to enroll. That's what they're managing. Help them do that. And help them understand that if you are admitted, you will enroll. There are many creative ways of doing that. We talked about digital footprint, and then keep a documentation of accomplishments. And there are many different platforms to do this, either a personal website, even the coalition application allows you to do that. They have a section in there, or a portfolio. Just keep track, keep a record. And then you want to go deeper in the extracurriculars, not wider. Help your kids, really help them strive for that sense of joy in mastering skills. That will help them not only have a sense of fulfillment, but also help with their admission results. And then, rely on informed guidance as early as possible. If you have a great guidance counselor in the school, fantastic. If you're going to work with somebody like me, great. Just vet that person. Be sure that they belong to a reputable association of professionals. And yeah, and then the whole thing can really, really change and shift. And what we really want are kids who are thriving, right? We want, and what I want for all of you is to help your kids, or if you're students, for you to discover your talents and build a joyful, successful life of purpose and meaning that is going to bring you financial stability and a sense of satisfaction. So I'm really glad I got to share this material with you today. I'm really looking forward to your questions and to connecting with you. So Sydney, would you be kind enough again to please paste that link so that those of you who want to sign up for the 30-minute session with me to explore the possibility of working together and which package might be best for you, and also to benefit from the discount that will give you that opportunity. So wonderful. Well, now I'm going to look at, let's see, the Q&A. Very good. So yes, international schools. So international schools, I assume, Jenny, that what you're talking about is studying abroad, is not going to college in the US, but going to college abroad. What's interesting about going to college abroad is that there are many English-speaking bachelor degree programs out there that people don't typically know about. And there are ways to research them. Generally speaking, programs abroad, whether they're English speaking or not, tend to focus more on your academics than extracurriculars. But now there are exceptions. For example, I worked with a student who is in her first year of computer science and business in the Bocconi School in Milan, Italy. And because they're modeling themselves after the American universities, they are looking at extracurriculars. But I would say that, also depending on the country, for example, if you're in the main areas where there are English speaking programs for bachelor's degrees are going to be, of course, Canada, Europe, and this includes countries that are not English speaking, like France, Italy, Holland, etc., with a lot of possibilities. So if that's something that interests you, definitely explore it. Americans are considering these schools because partly of cost. Some of them are much cheaper. And sometimes just for the exciting journey that studying abroad is. So that's a great question. What if I attended a summer program and I'm still not sure? Right. Also, what is a recommended major in undergrad for law? Right. So, Ryan, again, don't be too concerned about having to figure it out, right? You have time in college. What's important is to give yourself some of these opportunities. And if you run out of time, I don't know, Ryan, if you're if you're in 12th grade and you're applying now, but even if you are, you will have chances in college. You will have summer internships where you'll be able to do that. And recommended major for undergrad in law, very interesting. I've been working with a few students who are interested in eventually in going to law school. And there are certain charts you can look for online, very easy to find, where they give you the proportion of the most successful majors for admission to law school. And you'll be interested to know that there's a huge variety, everything from philosophy to economics to political science to, English to classics. Classics is a big one. So, there you have a lot of leeway to explore. There are even some students who want to combine law with STEM. So they're majoring in engineering or something else and applying to law school. So a lot of possibilities. Where can you find the 50th percentile scores? So you can find those generally on the website of the colleges. There might be lists as well of 50th percentiles for a bunch of different selective colleges on a list, but generally it's on the college website. You'll be able to find that. What percent of PSAT takers usually get the national merit? Okay. The percent, it's not so much a percentage, it's what percentile students are in. I'm trying to remember, I think this year is like 98% or 99 percentile, right? So it's scoring extremely high. And then, but that you can find on the, just look up the PSAT and you'll be able to find that. Every year it's slightly different because they go by percentile. So it's the scores of students, your scores being compared to the scores of other students. That's how they get the percentile. Yes, can my email be posted? Sure, my email can be posted. I will post that to everyone. Now, I ask you to respect my time. If something can be easily Googled, try Googling first before writing me, right? I'm very happy to support you. And as I say, especially to share free resources for low-income students. It's very important to me. But please respect my time. And before you write me, check if you can find this information easily. So I have just posted my email. Okay, transfer student taking all your AP courses in your senior year. Will that affect how colleges look at your application? Now, transfer student, I'm not sure what you mean, Nehemi. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. If you mean that you transferred from one high school into another, like for example, from one high school that didn't have a lot of AP classes to a high school with a lot of AP classes. Important thing is to explain to the colleges, if you transferred from a high school that did not have AP or very few into one that had a lot, explain that to them in the additional information section of the applications. Explain why all your APs are in senior year. That will help. What is dual enrollment? How does the application process look in that case? Well, dual enrollment means you get credits both for college and for high school graduation. However, be careful because some dual enrollment courses in a local community college will not give you credit at some of the more selective colleges. So be sure when you are looking at these colleges to ask those questions. Be very clear with admissions. Ask the questions so that you don't have a surprise. But generally what it is that those courses are giving you credits both for high school and for college. And what that does is it supposedly reduces the time that you spend in college, which also saves people money. But, I read an interesting article about that recently. And some of the points were very good, which is that may not be the best for all students. There is something to be said for spending that time, of course, resources permitting and cost of attendance permitting, to spend that time, especially at that young age, exploring a little bit more before diving into work or going directly to grad school. So Ryan, I'm in 11th. I took a law intensive program. Okay, I'm not sure what your question is. If you want to post it below later, you can. Recommended major for becoming a surgeon. Yes, so medical school, like law school, look at those majors and the proportion. You can do a lot of different majors and still apply to medical school as long as you take the medical school requirements and you do a lot of volunteering and other related internships and things like that, shadowing during college. So that's quite open. You suggested taking the SAT once in sophomore year and once in junior year. Do schools typically average the SAT scores? Yeah, I did not suggest taking the SAT once in sophomore year and once in junior year. Sorry if there was a misunderstanding. What I'm saying is that sometimes it's good to start that prep early because it will free up your time later on. Some colleges take a super score of the SAT. That means the highest sections, let's say you take it 3 times, you had the highest math and the highest English, and they'll combine those together as a super score. And sometimes colleges will just take your highest score from one time. And sometimes they want to see all your scores and they want to do their own calculation. So that's how it works. Summer activities that you recommend for 10th graders. Sydney, if you could just let me know, can we keep going a little bit with these questions or not? Are we able to, yes, a couple of more questions. Okay, so I'm gonna just look through these. If I haven't gotten to your question, please feel free. If you cannot find it online, please respect my time. If you cannot find it online, then feel free to contact me. Okay, I'm just gonna look to see if there are a few of the same. Colleges that are good at biology, there are many lists out there. Look at Niche, look at US News and World Report, and then there are other lists as well. Oxford, yes. So that is a deeper question. We cannot cover that today. Kioma, but another in another context. Yeah, let's see. Portfolio for musical theater application. So I do work with a lot of performing and visual artists, as well as STEM students and other types of students. And there are specific audition requirements. There's called a pre-screen and then audition. Pick a school that you're really interested in and look at their pre-screen requirements. For example, Tisch School of the Arts. And then you'll get an idea of what that looks like. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna look at one more. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions about essays and a lot of questions about activities. So I'm going to briefly address both of those. So for the essays, how do you write a good essay? Well, the essay is a chance for you to tell your story, to bring, that's why I gave you that case study. Pull those threads together of all the different things that are your strengths, and show something that is not going to be evident in your transcript, in your test scores. You want to give them an insight into your world. And if you can start to imagine, you're reading thousands and thousands of applications, what kind of thing would you want to have in front of you? So put your best effort into telling the story in as personal a way. It's not about choosing the right topic. It's really about making it, first of all, very specific, very personal in the sense of not generic, not just copy pasting what you think the school wants to hear from you, but really diving into how can I answer this prompt, or how can I tell my story in a way that will remain in their memory. So there are some tricks. I can't go through them because we don't have the time, but there definitely are. And of course, I do work a lot with students on essays. And then the other one was about activities. So the activities, what activities for some for 11th graders, some for 10th graders. It's not about 11th graders and 10th graders. It's about who the student is, right? And what kinds of activities are going to help that student understand themselves, understand where they might want to go in terms of major, in terms of career, something that's going to be fun and rewarding, and also that's going to help them build their build their resume. Now you might think, oh my gosh, how can I do all of those things at once? Well, it's not impossible. It's actually very doable. That is the core and the essence of my talent development program for students beginning in middle school all the way through 11th grade, is to help them identify those activities. So if you're doing it on your own, or you're doing it for your child, ask yourself those questions. What lights me up? What am I really good at? What do I dream of doing in the future? And then start to explore the options. So, Sydney, if you would be kind enough just before I go to paste that. Oh, here it is. It's right very close in the chat, so I don't think you have to paste it again. Thank you so much for being here. And it was a pleasure and honor to speak with you. And I wish you all a wonderful college admissions process, whether we work together or not. May you really find a path that has meaning for you. May you have the success that you're looking for. And, I hope that this has been helpful. So take very good care, and always, always, when in doubt, always prioritize purpose. Thanks again.